Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Pitbull has purchased the naming rights to a stadium at FIU.
Mr. Worldwide.
Mr. Worldwide. So now Overdrive, we are in pursuit of our own naming rights. All right? And someone wrote in with a great idea, Christy Pitts, which we do reference a lot on this show. We need it to be Overdrive Pitts. We need to pay to rename Christy Pitts Overdrive Pitts. We will pay, not a lot, but we expect the city of Toronto. They'll get back to us. I'm sure they'll get back to us.
Have JP send an email.
Yeah, JP will get on that.
I think that should fall onto JP's desk.
Yeah, I think JP, he's a man of clout.
Yeah.
JP will get things done. All right, Keegan Matheson later this hour, confirm or deny later this hour. So The Athletic has been doing something for 9 years. It's incredible that The Athletic's been around for 9 years. I don't know why that is surprising to me, but it seems like a long time. It's a pretty good run. Yeah. Shout out to The Athletic.
Still
there you
going.
go.
Yeah.
And they ask fans, so this is a fan experiment, where they ask fan bases throughout the NHL to vote on their confidence level of their respective front offices. So obviously here in Toronto, Leaf fans are voting on how they feel about Shanahan, Trey Living, the front office in general. And it's based on, or it's graded based on 6 categories: roster building, cap management, drafting and development, trading, free agency, and vision. All right, so 6 different categories, and you can vote whichever way you choose. Now, to no one's surprise, the team that came in ranked number 1, the Florida Panthers. All right, you win a Stanley Cup. They've been a very competitive team for 3 years, back-to-back Cup finals, President's Cup 3 years ago. Everything across the board here they've done. They've done pretty well. Although drafting and developing, they didn't necessarily draft and develop. A lot of the guys that were on that championship team was a lot of signing, a lot of trading, but great vision.
And the guys they drafted were Ekblad first overall.
Yes, Barkov second overall. Pretty good. Good.
No-brainers.
No-brainers. Good for you. But still, first overall and second overall still. They deserve to be number 1. All right, I'm not here to yell about Florida being number 1. But if you're wondering where the Maple Leafs are on this list, you have to scroll way down the page. The Maple Leafs came in ranked 30th on the list. There it is up on TSN2. Florida at number 1. The Leafs are 30th, which, I'm sorry, basically makes this whole practice irrelevant. There's a couple of different things. Utah's at 4. Who's voting for Utah?
Well, that's what makes
Who is
this,
that?
That's what makes this so
They haven't
skewed,
played in
Hayes.
Utah yet.
Not that they haven't played in Utah. We don't know what Utah
What
is.
vision do they have?
The Coyotes
were train wreck.
They were never allowed to spend any money.
Right.
So you didn't know what the vision was for the general manager. We still don't really know. And I think Bill Armstrong's going to be a very good general manager in the league. We just talked to him last week. He has a clear vision for his team.
Interesting guy.
No problem.
Big fan.
But the Leafs make the playoffs
every single year.
Every single year. Regardless of what you think they do in the first round and the second round, it is a formality that they are making the playoffs. So 30th is
absurd.
Asinine.
It's absurd. And I understand Leaf fans, they're emotional. Leaf fans are not happy. They shouldn't be happy. I'm not sitting here suggesting the Leafs should be number 1. I'm not sure they should be in the top 10 anymore. There was a time 4 or 5 years ago where they would have been in the top 10 every single year. For years, like at the beginning of the Shanna plan, when Matthews showed up and Marner was here and Nylander and Babcock and everything was rosy, they would have been in the top 3, I'll bet, if not in the top 5. They were probably ahead of Cup winners, even though that was absurd at the time as well. But Leaf fans were so ecstatic and so optimistic with where the future was going. I get it. It's become stale. This offseason, they talked a big game. Everything's on the table. They did nothing of significance other than moving off Sheldon Keefe, which is a significant play, but they hired the guy that everyone knew they were going to hire. I'm not against Craig Berube as a hire, but it wasn't some over-the-top, creative, out-of-left-field, wow, this is a different vision, I can't believe it play. It was a stock play. Good play, good hiring. I'm curious to see what Craig Berube brings. But other than that, they traded for Chris Tanev, a guy that was a tree-living guy for years that they tried to get at the trade deadline. And then, you bring in an Ekman Larson, a couple of other pieces here or there, but somewhat of a predictable offseason. The core 4 coming back, the core 5, if you include Riley, they're all coming back. So they didn't do anything drastic here. I understand why Leaf fans are disappointed in that. I'm disappointed that they would do that. So, yes, they lose some points for vision. They lose some points in some of these different categories.
Draft and develop.
Draft and develop has been hit or miss.
Yep.
But I still believe in this front office more than I believe in at least half of the front offices in the NHL.
Dude, no
Columbus
kidding.
is ahead of them.
What are we
San
doing?
Jose is ahead of them. Utah, Chicago. Yes, you bottomed out and got Bedard. Do you know how awful that team is? Like, I'm sorry. And why is Vegas 11th?
Yeah.
Vegas, all they've done since they arrived in the NHL is chase cups, go to cup finals, be an unbelievable team with great vision, great trades, everything. They're 11th. The whole list is lopsided to me. Ottawa's ahead of the Leafs.
Anaheim is 16. Anaheim has drafted a lot of really, really good young prospects.
They're
Guess
terrible team.
Terrible team. They picked 3rd overall last year.
Yes.
How is that ahead of the Toronto Maple
It's
Leafs?
absurd. It's an absurd list. Listen, Florida should be one. Dallas has been great. Tampa, I agree, based on their history. I think Vancouver, there's a lot of confidence there. Again, it's about confidence. And it is easier to sell the beginning of a plan. Montreal's at 6. I think they've done a really good job selling. This is what we're going to do.
They've preached patience, and people are bought into it.
And they've applied patience.
Yes.
They have not gotten crazy in free agency. They haven't done anything stupid at the trade deadline. That front office knows they're still 2 or 3 years away from really jumping. But I don't know if they're going to be able to get the job done once they get there. I don't know if they can get them to, 2, 3, 4 steps down the road. Where, yes, the Leafs keep hitting their head on the wall. It's a very acute issue. They cannot win a Game 7, and they do not have, by all accounts, the courage to go out and do something drastic. They're terrified to live in a world without the core 4. They're terrified to do it. And I know their hands were tied here and no movements and no true. All that kind of stuff is true. They gave them those deals, so they got to own them. You get dock points. I get it. I understand where you would dock points. If they were 13th on this list, I'd say I can reason with that. 30th is asinine,
It's
even
absurd.
for Leaf fans, who I get why they're so disappointed.
Okay, so
we need some perspective here. This front office is not a disaster.
100%.
Shanahan and Treliving are pretty smart guys, and they know what they're doing. It hasn't worked. I'd like to see them do different things at some point. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but they're not 30th in the league.
It's a very competent front office. You can see the purpose and what they're trying to do. Like, it's very evident. They wanted bigger players. They wanted some meatier guys. They wanted to reshape the blue line. They did all that. They've executed on that. So no problem. Here's where I find it weird. Calgary is in the top 20. Okay, now follow me here. Let's do the web. Calgary's in the top 20. Calgary's at 18. Toronto's at 30. Pittsburgh is at 29. And the Islanders are at 32. Okay, so let's do this. Calgary, where Brad Treliving just was, is now ahead, way ahead of Toronto. Where Kyle Dubas was in Toronto, he goes one step forward with Pittsburgh.
Right.
So Pittsburgh and Toronto basically have bottomed out. And it's like, it's this weird entanglement of these two, I don't know how you associate these two.
Well,
I'm having a hard time articulating how you associate these two.
I think what's happened here is, and this is athletic sports conspiracy theory.
Okay.
But this is an attack basically on Brendan Shanahan. That's what's happened here. Shanahan, the first guy he hired was Lou Lamoriello. Lou runs the Islanders. They're 32nd.
Yeah.
All right. So he's been a part of the Shanahan plan. They're 32nd. Shanahan's still in Toronto. He hired Brad Treliving. They're at 30. Shanahan hired Kyle Dubas. He's at 29. It's Shanahan at 29, Shanahan at 30, Shanahan at 32. I just feel like, and I know there were tens of thousands of votes, 9,500 would be Leaf fans, I feel. And Leaf fans are just scattering throughout the whole thing.
Sure.
And again, I understand why Leaf fans are disappointed. I understand why you don't feel good about where this is going. I wouldn't put my confidence in this front office in the top 10 compared to other front offices in the league. I'd have it somewhere in the middle, though. Like I said, if they were 13th, I'd say sure.
What has
15th,
San Jose done in building their team
Nothing.
that gives you confidence that they're
Nothing.
going to be a good team
Nothing.
in this decade?
Chicago, nothing. Columbus, nothing. Like I could go, there's so many different teams. Anaheim, Ottawa, again.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of Steve Stais. I love Dave Pullen. I love those guys.
I know.
But come on, let's have some perspective here. Montreal in the top 10.
They're just starting their process.
Yes, but that's what it comes. A lot of it is it's easier to sell, and I understand a lot of it is recency bias. Leaf fans are furious. I understand that. I get it because so many Leaf, and I do think this is a testament. There is something you can draw out of this. Leaf fans, at least the ones online, they're more angry than they ever have been. And there have been more and more recruits to the other side of you've got to not blow this up, but get rid of the core four. This philosophy can't work. Something's got to happen. And I think what this ranking is telling us is, I guess it's putting something more finite.
It's showing how angry they are.
It is that, we've been hearing it, and it's purely been anecdotal. And here now you've got a list where people are saying this is why. Where I guarantee you, I guess to emphasize this point, if they traded Marner this summer, this front office would be in the top 10 on this ranking.
Vision would have been 8.
Vision would have changed. The trade would have been, received well, possibly. Who knows what it would have looked like. Maybe it wouldn't have. But the point being is, I think Leaf fans would have said, all right, you're showing a pulse. Something's different here. But I think Leaf fans, understandably, and I can't argue against it, are not. They think they're going to roll through the regular season, get to the playoffs, get to the first round, and maybe run out of steam.
There's one more discrepancy we just have to point out before we get to Keegan. And this should be the cherry on top for how absurd this list is. The Edmonton Oilers, who were 1 win away from winning a Stanley Cup, are 25th.
25.
And the fan base perception and the public's perception is very different of these two teams, where publicly, pretty good.
Unreal.
A lot of A's, B's, free agency, A-, total, it's there. Within the fan base, it's like they're pissed off. Mm-hmm. They were 1 win away from the Stanley Cup.
What else would you want?
You don't have confidence in them?
Yeah.
They were 1 win away.
And I think they had a good offseason, too.
Right. And listen, I'm not saying they have to be 5, but 25?
Right.
When you're 1 win away from the Stanley Cup, it's a little too low.
It is low. And listen, I understand there weren't a lot of people happy with the Stan Bowman hiring. I understand that. But there were a lot of people that weren't happy with Ken Holland.
But you're evaluating
I
think you're evaluating Ken Holland at this point.
Yeah, you are.
Because this is the
Bowman didn't do anything.
He hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah, he literally hasn't done anything.
This is the Jeff Jackson evaluator.
Yes, exactly right. And it was tied 1-1 after 20 minutes in Game 7 of the Cup final. But Anaheim's ahead of them.
Yeah.
Anaheim.
And Utah.
Utah should have been excluded completely. I'm sorry. You can't be included in a list like this.
Dude,
I can't have it. You got more on this.
We got to take it easy
later.
on Utah.
I like Utah. I like that they're in the league more than Arizona, but you have no chops in the game right now.
I know.
Why are you in the top 10?
I don't know.
How? You haven't done anything. Here's Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. What's up, Keegan?
Fellas, I like the energy I'm coming in on here.
Yes.
Are we ranking how unhappy people are? I'm right at home.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it's a confidence ranking on The Athletic. This was about the front offices in the NHL, and the Leafs, ranked 30th. Okay, Frankie and I tend to disagree, vehemently disagree. I don't think they should be in the top 10, probably somewhere around the middle of the pack. But 30th speaks to how disappointed Leaf fans are with what's been going on with this team year after year after year. Now that we're about a week removed, or I guess exactly a week removed from the trade deadline, let's apply it to the Blue Jay team. You canvassing the Blue Jay market and the fan base. Where do you think this front office would rank among the other 29 in the major leagues in terms of confidence that their fans have in them getting a job done in the future?
Probably pretty close to their friends down the street,
Yeah.
I think. It's changed over the year, guys, and I've sensed this, but it all comes back to the same thing. Now, earlier in the year, there was hesitation, I think, from fans. Months 2 and 3, that was anger, which is a more active emotion. Now you're seeing the result of it all, and people are upset, but it's kind of been a slow death of this team over the year. And I think people are exhausted at this point. You've lived through the trade deadline. You've lived through players that people really love. Guys like Jimmy Garcia, Danny Jansen, Turner, Kikuchi. You've lived through all of those trades. There were 8 trades. My goodness. At this point, I think fans are ready to exhale and, my God, get the next year at this point.
Yeah.
And some of those deals over the trade deadline, I think, went over fairly well. A couple of them, Kikuchi especially, I think was very good. But why'd you have to make them? Because you're not contending for a postseason spot. So even the happy things kind of had a bad edge to them. And it's been an interesting year, and I think people are exhausted.
Yeah, and I wonder if that applies to John Schneider, where, we know what happened over the weekend. He intentionally walks Judge, nobody on, couple outs. And afterwards, he basically said, I just didn't want to see that guy swing anymore. And he's paying him a lot of respect. That's a Barry Bonds move. And Judge is not Barry Bonds, but he's not far off in terms of the impact he's having at the plate right now. But this team, you just said it, the season's over. They're 10 games under 500. It's done. What did you make of the decision by Schneider to do that in a game where you're chasing it to begin with, the season's over? But moreover, his reaction afterward, or his explanation where he basically just said, I didn't want to see it. It didn't even feel like it was analytically driven or a game plan. He just was like, screw it, man. I can't watch this guy crush us anymore. So I'm gonna bail out here and walk him intentionally in the situation that he was in.
Yeah, normally I like it when someone strays outside of the hard analytic reasoning and says, hey, you know what? The vibe felt really bad. We did X because of that. There's got to be some room for some of that along the way. This is a big discussion, guys, of how do you play the rest of this season. And it's harder in baseball because there aren't as many opportunities to take a risk or do something wild. If this is football, we're talking about a young team that's 1-10. You just uncork it. Let your rookie quarterback throw it around, eat some interceptions, who cares? But in baseball, you don't have as many of those opportunities. This was an opportunity being a little more conservative. I think an example of being more conservative for the Blue Jays. At this point of year, let it fly. I mean, there is an argument to be made that, yeah, you try to win, try to play every game to win, try to simulate that for next year. But a lot of these guys will be back next year. Let it fly, especially the pitchers. There are times to walk Aaron Judge, absolutely. But I would like to see this team be as aggressive as possible down the stretch. If that means being a little chaotic, opening up some possibilities to things going wrong, so be it. Stuff's gone wrong already. And I think it's a little more fun down the stretch if they really play this out and are aggressive. Because a lot of these games, along with being losses, just haven't been fun baseball, frankly, for the season.
Does it send the wrong message, Keegan? Like, you have a lot of these young players that are almost in like an audition for next year, and there's no guarantee that these guys are going to be there. Like, they're going to make some free agent signings. Like, not all these guys are going to be there, but you're trying to, convince them to audition basically for next year. How do you do that when it's almost like you're kind of throwing in the towel with moves like that?
It is tough because you are pointing at Aaron Judge and saying that big guy over there is our daddy. We're going to walk him. This guy owns this franchise, baby. And again, sometimes that's smart to do. And it's about how you frame it. It's about how you brand it. Now, John Schneider can just as easily go into that room and say, hey, we have analytic X, Y, and Z that said to walk this guy because no matter what, we're trying to win this game. We don't care if we're out of it. We're trying to win this one game. It's more about how you brand it to the players, more about how you try to sell this to your players individually. And then, of course, when this happens in New York, everything is 10 times bigger with media there, with the Yankees focus from across baseball. So this is getting national play as well as we talk more and more about Judge getting, like you said, Hayes, that bit of a Barry Bonds treatment off the top. And it is a hard one to look at, especially when you want to be seeing young kids. You want to see them going wild, playing fast, free, and easy. It's a real fine balance. And even as I think about it, I'm not sure where I land on it, but the most important thing, I think, here is how you sell it to the players in the clubhouse. Does it mean that you're really, really, really going for it and you thought this was smart? Or is there another answer?
With Keegan Matheson of MLB.com, Jays Orioles tonight down at Rogers Center, and the lineup's out, and you got Joey Loperfido hitting second and playing left field tonight. Spencer Horwitz will DH. He's batting cleanup tonight. Ernie Clement playing short, Addison Barger playing third, Leo Jimenez playing second. Of those young players, and they're going to be scattered throughout this lineup, likely throughout the season, how many of those guys, or can you pick one or two, do you think that the Jays feel best about at this point and have the best chance at breaking camp next year and being everyday players for this team next year?
Well, first of all, fellas, I mean, you never know where a year's going to take you as you read off that lineup, right? Next spring, when we're talking in February, and I'm being very confident and all-knowing about how the year is going to go, tell me to shut up. It's amazing how we get here, guys. It's amazing. When you look around, I think Loperfido has to be part of that upside. This is a guy who you can get offensive upside from, and if it all works, which it very well could, that saves you some money as well. The Blue Jays were going to need to go get a left fielder next year. If Loperfido works out as a starter with upside, you take that cash and put it somewhere else. You go get bullpen help. You get another starter. You get another bat, which they're still going to need. There's others like a Leo Jimenez, who I really like. I think maybe 2026 and beyond, he could be the thing that happens after Bo Bichette. But Spencer Horwitz is one who I want to see a lot of down the stretch. He had a great start, tailed off a little bit, but I like him over the course of a full major league season. You're more talking about the guys that'll get pushed onto the bench. Davis Schneider is another real interesting one. Will someone push him off? Can he adjust? Because it's been pretty tough for Davis Schneider lately. But looking around this team, you have the upside in guys like Barger, but this is still kind of that muddy bottom of the roster, guys jockeying for spots. Loperfido, to me, is the one real example of a guy who can be something more than towards the middle. He can really pop off with that talent. And in the outfield, the Blue Jays need it. This team does not develop many outfielders whatsoever. It's great to have 10 guys who can also play the outfield. But every once in a while, I just want a guy that can play one position. And if Loperfido can be that guy in left, that'd be awfully nice.
With all the trades that they made and all the prospects that came back their way, do you see any kind of bump as far as how the rest of the league views the prospect pool for the Jays?
A little bit. Nothing significant. There weren't a lot of top 20 in MLB prospects traded around. Someone like Jake Bloss, who I think we will see soon from that Kikuchi deal, that's a big help. I really like that move. That trade, to me, still does not make sense from Houston's standpoint, but Blue Jays are happy with that. When you add some other talent like Jonathan Clase, who came over from Seattle in that Jimmy Garcia deal, a little more athleticism, a little more diversity of skills in this system. I really only, guys, look at the top 3 or 4 guys they got back. I'll include Charles McAdoo in that as well from Pittsburgh for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. This system, like any other system, has a million guys who are in the middle. Of the 13 or 14 prospects they acquired, I would group 8 or 9 of them into that middle, lower tier. You wait a couple of years, and if one of them pops, fantastic. You call it a win. They did raise their ceiling a little bit, though, and that's what this team needs. They have developed guys like Schneider, like Horwitz, like Jimenez, guys who can be big leaguers. They need to develop stars. They need to get another star for beyond Vladdy, for beyond Bo, a guy that you can't just find, a guy that you really think is someone who can be the face of something.
Keegan, always great catching up with you, buddy. Enjoy yourself down there at the park. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
You got it, fellas. Take care.
Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. Yeah, a lot of turnover, and he's right, man. You look at this roster. August 6th, you look at this roster, and the old if I had have told you. If I had have told you this is what was playing against the Orioles tonight, you'd say they're 10 games under 500. Like, you'd say it's a disaster of a season. They obviously had a lot of injuries. They traded off a bunch of pieces because this looks like a team that's rebuilding, reloading, and yet they're trying to convince the world that they're not or that they don't have to.
Right.
And they made some good moves. But they also made predictable, safe plays where they just unloaded guys who had no term left.
But they also put themselves in that situation. Like, they were never supposed to be doing that at this point in the year. They were supposed to be competing for at least a wild card spot. So, if you told me back in February, you showed me this lineup and say, it's August 6th. This is going to be the Jays lineup. I'd say, well, what the hell went wrong this year? Mm-hmm. Rotation hasn't been good. Offensively, the team has struggled. Bichette has struggled. No bullpen. Like, that's where you're at, and that's what you get.
Yeah, exactly. Yet, they didn't trade Bassett. They didn't trade Gosman. They obviously stuck with Bo and Vladdy, moves that I expected, and I don't think Bo's going to play again this year. I know Schneider was saying today they're going to check. He's coming up to Toronto later in the week and to check in. I think he's gone.
Would you have tried to trade? Like, would you have tried to trade Bassett when you saw the Kikuchi return?
Yes. I mean,
I would have done everything I could after seeing that return.
Yes. Like, for me, I don't see how they patch it together and they're competitive next year. Can they be better? Sure. Could they be 500? Could they finish with 83 wins, maybe 85? Yeah, that's possible. Now they reload, they spend some money, maybe make a couple of trades. But this has been such a disastrous season to the point where even if you're selling the future, their 2 top prospects, Ricky Tiedemann now has Tommy John, and Orelvis Martinez got clipped for 80 games for taking PEDs. The 2 guys that all Blue Jay fans were aware of are out.
Dude, it's a disaster.
So you can't sell the future. You can't bring them up. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And Tiedemann's now out of the rotation for a year and a half at least.
Who knows where Manoah's status is going to be? Like,
Manoah's exactly.
I think he's so far off the face of, playing
He's
baseball.
not a part of the
he
conversation
had Tommy
anymore.
John. I know.
Yeah, he's out. He's out. I mean, I'm pulling for the guy to be great. We'll see where he is in 18 months. But he's not a part of the conversation anymore. So
how many Cy Youngs do you think we predicted he was going to have at one point? Like, I feel
a
like
fair
we were
amount.
talking one summer. It's like, this guy's
fair amount.
at least 2 Cy Youngs.
But they've got a long history of that. Like Aaron Sanchez was going to win them. Dustin McGowan was going to win a bunch.
Yeah.
And Nate Pearson was going to win a bunch. And Alek Manoah was going to win a bunch. And
was Ricky Romero going to win?
Ricky Romero was
just an ace.
He was going to be in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
His career year was going to be third in AL Cy Young voting or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's too bad. You can't predict the future. And this lineup tonight is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Because they're probably going to get crushed by Baltimore. And they just dropped 2 or 3 against the Yankees. They're 10 games under 500. It's only going to get worse.
I wonder.
They still have 2 months left. It's only going to get worse.
I know it's going to be tough for John Schneider to handle everything, how to manage everything, because I don't know. You got to try and sell these guys that it's meaningful, that these are auditions, and how do you do that if you're semi in and out of it too, where you're like, no, just walk them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like he's going to face the heat just like Ross Atkins, I think.
I think you're probably right. And yet, maybe they're all a package deal, and everyone's going to return next year, and it's kumbaya, and you reset. We'll see. Confirm or deny still to come. The men's basketball team lost this afternoon against France. We'll get back into that, back into the athletics rankings in terms of confidence. Fans' confidence in the front offices throughout the NHL. The Leafs front office ranked 30th out of 32. Kyle Dubas and the Pens were 29. Lou Lamoriello and the Islanders were 32. More on that still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Austin trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
Oh, I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
All right, Confirm and Deny is brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there's no such thing as a no-trade clause. Any make, any model, any time. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com. All right, statements are made. We either confirm them or we deny them. Very simple stuff.
You missed this?
I did, actually. This is a good one, all right? So we got NFL camps cooking. You see the NFL Network came out with their top 100 players, and Mahomes was at number 4.
Ridiculous.
What is going on here? Is there something that I'm unaware of? Do people not like Mahomes? Like, I know it's player voted, right? It's driven by the players. And I understand there's other great players. McCaffrey's a great player. You're telling me Mahomes isn't the clear-cut number 1?
Dude, go ahead, poke the bear. Say he's not number 1. He is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are the Raiders doing? Mocking him with some stupid thing. Did you see that garbage?
No, I didn't, but of course they would. The Raiders, what else would you
add
expect?
more fuel to the fire. I think it was the Raiders, and I can't remember what it was. Anyways, add more fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
And watch this guy cook you again.
He will. He will absolutely do it again. With that in mind, confirm or deny, the Edmonton Oilers have a better chance of winning a title this upcoming season than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Ooh.
You go Oilers or Chiefs. Oilers are the confirm or deny.
Oh, man. I'm going to deny this. I'm going to deny it, Hayes.
Okay.
For no other reason than this. And we're talking Patrick Mahomes, best in the game. Connor McDavid, best in the game. We can agree there pretty much.
Absolutely.
I feel like Kansas City has the secret sauce. Like, they know the recipe. They understand, like, kind of when they're at, like, a little bit of a pace themselves point in the season. They understand the big games. They understand the big moment a little bit more than the Edmonton Oilers. And hockey's so fickle. Like, there can be a team that catches fire at the right time. There could be a goalie that steals a series. I feel like more can go wrong for the Oilers than it can for the Chiefs.
I agree with you. Now, there's history going against both of these teams, right? No one's ever won 3 Super Bowls in a row in the Super Bowl era. Never happened. Brady and Belichick never did that. So from that standpoint, it's very difficult to see the Chiefs do it. And yet on the other side, the Oilers, Canadian, the drought, everything you said is 100% accurate. So I'm going to deny it as well because I've seen it done by the Chiefs. I know where the Oilers were. I know people are going to jump on me and say they were in Game 7 of the Cup final. Yes, they were, but they did not win it. And I have more faith with Mahomes in a situation where he has to win one game than anyone else in pro sports right now. Like, there's nobody else in pro sports that is more clutch than Patrick Mahomes.
He's got the thing that you would say you don't bet against Mahomes. Just like you didn't bet against Brady. And Brady lost.
Yeah.
But there was always that fear factor. You just don't bet against that guy.
Right. And I look at their division. I don't have any faith in the Raiders. The Broncos are going to be terrible. I think the Chargers will be better with Harbaugh, but I don't think they're there yet. I think it'll take him a couple of years.
They have 5 wins last year. Like, how much better could they be?
Exactly. Like, I think
team,
the Chiefs are going to cruise to the playoffs. The Oilers will too. The Oilers are going to make the playoffs. But the Chiefs are going to have to win 4 games. The Oilers are going to have to win 4 series. Like you said, if Mahomes is healthy, Andy Reid's cooking up plays. Last year felt like the year to get him, where they were turning over the offense, over the offensive line, different weapons. Kelsey had a down year offensively during the regular season. I just feel like the Chiefs are in a position to three-peat. I really feel very bullish about what they're going to do.
And if you compare the path, for the Oilers, it's like you still got to get through Vegas.
Yep.
Should be a good team.
Vancouver's good.
Vancouver's a good team. And then you got to get through the Central where it's like there's Colorado, there's Dallas. Nashville will be better. I don't know how good they will be, but it's not exactly a walk in the park for Edmonton. Like, too many things could go wrong.
Yeah, I think it's a good question to pat ourselves on the back. I think you could answer this either way, clearly. I think both of them are the favorites, like the betting favorites as of right now on FanDuel to win the Super Bowl and winning the Stanley Cup next year. It's Edmonton and Kansas City. But the Chiefs have done it. And there's a lot of value in that. Confirm or deny, Connor McDavid has a better chance of winning MVP this upcoming season than Patrick Mahomes.
I see what we're doing here.
Yes, we got a little theme. We're pitting 2 teams against each other.
All right, can you repeat it for me? Connor
McDavid, better chance of winning the MVP than Mahomes.
I'm gonna deny that. I think Patrick Mahomes has a better chance.
Okay.
I think the bar has been raised so much by Connor McDavid that every single year we're looking for him to do something that's, extraordinary. It's got to be 150 points. It's got to be 65 goals where, someone like McKinnon, who does what he did last year, that has a little bit of a shock factor. That has a little bit of a, hey, I came up and I grabbed it from you because you didn't do 165 points this year. So it's almost like not voting fatigue or voting bias. It's like McDavid just keeps elevating the bar to the point where it's like, how many years in a row can he chase it higher? Where Mahomes, like, I feel like, he just, yes, he has elevated the bar in his own way, but he just gets that kind of benefit of the doubt in the NFL where it's like the one guy, MVP, he just has to do his thing and the voters are going to know that he's the MVP.
Yeah, I'm going to actually confirm this, that McDavid has a better chance than Mahomes, because I think the bar being elevated does apply to both guys. McDavid had 100 assists last year, and he didn't win it. He has to put up astronomical numbers, yet he plays with enough great players, and they have a power play that's so potent that he's going to put up those numbers. With Mahomes, in order for you to win MVP, it's got to be like 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, like something absurd. And I think he's past that. It's not. I think McDavid is too. I don't think McDavid needs another heart, but I think he may just pick it up naturally because he's going to go out there and he's going to win the Art Ross if he's healthy. He's going to finish with like 145 points or whatever it's going to be. Where Mahomes, without like a true over-the-top number 1 target, which I'm not sure he has anymore. I know Kelsey's still good. I think Kelsey is playing for the playoffs. I think Travis Kelsey is a guy that's going to cook week in, week out. Mahomes will still put up great numbers, but I think someone is more likely to get him in the NFL. There's still, like Josh Allen will put up a number that's statistically just better on the page. Doesn't mean he's a better player, but statistically will just pass him. Look what Lamar did last year. Maybe it's Dak. Maybe it's Jordan Love that just puts up these astronomical numbers.
It feels like it has to be a quarterback.
It's always a quarterback.
Yeah.
It always is. And, maybe McCaffrey's that guy. Maybe Justin Jefferson. Like, maybe there's another defensive player.
If McCaffrey couldn't do it last year,
exactly,
where he's getting a touchdown every single game, like
how's he going to do it? It's going to be a quarterback. There's just so many other great quarterbacks. And not that there aren't other great players that McDavid's competing with. McKinnon's a great player. Kucherov's a great player. Matthews had 69 goals. But it just feels like McDavid missed it last year. And somehow he dipped, even though he had 100 assists. He plays with such great players. Him, Draisaitl, Hyman on that power. He's going to rack up so many points, and I feel like he's just got a slightly better chance. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if neither guy won. Like last year, neither guy won. It was Lamar and McKinnon.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough to be the last man standing and to win an MVP in any respective league.
For sure.
It's incredibly tough to do.
There's always someone that's going to grab the narrative, someone that's going to grab the storyline.
Yep. Exactly. Well, and that's a big part of it, too. As the year goes on, the narrative arrives. Oh, what's this guy doing? This guy came out of nowhere. He elevated his team somewhere we didn't see coming.
Although I can't see Dak. I cannot see Dak.
Dak really has to put up crazy numbers.
I don't see it. I feel like there's too much noise around that team. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of distractions, and I just don't think he has the chops. Like,
I don't think he'll do it either, because like he had a great first 12 or 14 games last year. He had a great season. Like, he really did have a great statistical season. He's a really good player, but he faded late. Saw what happened in the playoffs. It's the Cowboys. I agree with you. Confirm or deny, Vladdy Jr. has played himself into a must-sign long-term status for the Blue Jays.
Oh, that is a confirm.
Oh,
that is a 100%
Is it
confirm.
a confirm? Okay.
Where the hell are you going without Vladdy? Like that, you need to lock him up, because you can't sell anything if you don't have Vladdy. You can't sell the future. You can't sell tickets. You can't sell that it's going to be a semi-quick turnaround if you don't have Vladdy. So Vladdy needs to be here yesterday locked up.
Okay. I agree with everything you just said there, that he needs to be signed. I would sign him. I would keep him around. I think he can apply to any plan. Blow it up, rebuild, retool, go for it, building a dynasty, whatever it is. Vladdy fits in because of his age, right? What is he, 25 years old? Like, he's still got 6, 7, 8 years of really good baseball. If you're going to blow it up and rebuild and think you can't compete in 3 or 4 years, what are we doing here? The renovations, the marketing, the marquee. He's a massive name in the city. Everyone knows Vladdy. Everyone loves Vladdy. I'm signing him, but I'm going to deny that he's played himself into this. He's been red hot the last couple of months. Full credit to him. One of the hottest bats in baseball. He's been outstanding. The previous year and a half, he was not. The previous 2 years, he was not. It can't be a scenario where it's like, wow, he's red hot for a month and a half. Give him $300+ million. Like, that's not the way baseball works. It's about data. It's about longevity. It's about projection. I love the way he's playing right now. I'd like to believe he's closer to this guy than the guy he was a year ago. Realistically, he's probably still someone in the middle. He's probably someone that's going to hit 30 to 35 home runs, give you an OPS around 850 or something like that, and just be a really good player that stays healthy and plays every day. That's a good cornerstone piece.
Fine, you need that.
It's a really good player. That's not Aaron Judge, who played himself into, okay, when he hit 62 home runs, it's like you got to give him $400 million.
Right.
Or whatever it was. And like, that's not what's happening here. You can't take 2 months and say, mandatory blank check, give him whatever he wants.
No, but you also have to keep in mind that, like, how much protection does Vladdy have in this lineup? Like,
Nothing
how much
at
help
this
does he
point.
have around him? So, I know the last 2 years weren't exactly, 2021 where he was, outstanding, and, this year has been much better, but he doesn't exactly, like, he's not exactly surrounded by a lot of help. So the fact that he's doing what he's doing this year is even more impressive.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you're right. Maybe he's not, this or 2021 guy, but he's certainly not what he was the last couple years. What could he be if he had a little more help? So you pay
valid.
him to keep him around, and you hope you make the right signings and you develop the right guys around him so he actually looks more like this in the future.
And it takes a long time to build up a marketing tool in the form of a player. Like, you and I wouldn't understand that because of what we do for a living, where you know about these guys. You know about Ricky Tiedemann. You know about Orelvis Martinez. You knew Vladdy was coming. You knew Bo was coming. Diehards are aware. But the average person in the city that goes to maybe a game or two a year or a game every 2 or 3 takes a long. That guy doesn't know who Addison Barger is.
No kidding.
Or Spencer Horwitz. Vladdy, they've put so much time, so much effort, so many resources, so much money, so many marquees, so many billboards into him that he's a household name. Like, and there's a lot of value in that. Like, every Blue Jay fan knows who Vladdy is.
You got to sell
whether
these
you're
tickets,
the biggest diehard or you're someone that kind of checks in from time to time.
You got to sell a lot of things. Got to sell tickets. Got to sell hope that it's not going to be a 10-year process, that it's going to be a quick thing.
And Vladdy could represent all of that.
Yeah.
Confirmed or denied, Taylor Swift will remain a massive NFL side story this season.
Oh, confirm.
You think every time she shows up, it's still the same circus
confirmed.
around her?
Oh, yeah, even more.
Really?
Yes.
How could it be more than it was a year ago?
It just is. It's got to be. It has to be, doesn't it? Like, this
I
is
don't know,
full
man.
year. Didn't it start to kind of develop as the season went on, and then she made her first appearance?
Yes.
Like, I feel like now it's so solidified. It's so established. Like, Taylor's going to be in the mix. There's going to be cameras going over. I wouldn't be surprised if they had just a side stream of what Taylor is doing for every aspect of the game.
Like a Manning cast?
You could have a $7.99 purchase button to watch what Taylor is doing. The Taylor cast.
Yeah, people would pay for the Taylor cast. You're right.
My wife would make me pay for the Taylor cast.
I want that. Like it's like a picture in picture, right?
No,
Where
no,
it's
no.
Just up in the corners, Taylor.
Can you put another TV above our TV?
For the Taylor
put it on
cast.
the wall mount, and I'm going to watch the Taylor cast. $7.99 per game.
Yeah, they would make money on that. I'm going to deny this though. Like last year, it was early in the season. The rumors came out, maybe her and Kelsey, and then I want to say she showed up at her first game to see him. Is that like week 10 or week 11? Like it was well into the season. And then it became this big thing. And listen, she's the biggest thing in the world. Like there's no one bigger in terms of the show. She's still on tour. She doesn't come to Toronto for another 4 months. And when she gets here, she's playing 6 nights over 2 weeks.
And she's got the road named after her, too.
Oh, yeah, exactly. We can't get Overdrive Pitts, but she can get Queen Street named after her.
Isn't that absurd?
What the hell's going on with the priorities in this city? Overdrive Pitts should be more of a priority for city council than renaming, I think it was Queen after Taylor Swift. But I'm going to deny it that, at some point, I don't dispute when she's there, the camera will show her. It got so over the top. Every catch by Kelsey, show her. Every lead change, show her.
But don't
there
you
she
wanna
is
see
with
it?
Mahomes' wife. There she is sitting there with Jason Kelsey without his shirt off. At some point, one of these networks, if not all of them collectively, will say, let's let it breathe here a little bit. Just slow down
Think
a
about
little
who's,
bit. here.
Think about who's watching football now that wasn't watching football before. You know why? Because they're showing Taylor
So the
Swift.
NFL would definitely, I think, embrace the idea of showing her even more than they did last year. And maybe networks, will decide, listen, that's in our best interest too.
Dude,
How much more is there in that story?
You don't
Taylor
think
Swift and
CBS,
Travis Kelce.
you don't think these networks want another million people watching because all of a sudden it's like the wives or the girlfriends, they're watching Taylor Swift?
Are they still week 7 when you're playing Tennessee at 1:00?
Think about it. You just said
is that
she's
still a thing?
She's still on tour and she hasn't come to Toronto yet. So clearly, there's a lot of demand to see her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I still haven't been offered any tickets. I haven't heard of anyone giving up tickets. I think they're still selling for an obscene amount of money.
Tweet at Overdrive 1050 to offer Hayes Taylor Swift tickets.
It was a little sneaky plug. If anyone's just giving away tickets, shout out. Confirm or deny, brought to you by Summit Ford and South Lake Ford Lincoln, where there's no such thing as a no trade clause. Any make, any model, anytime. Visit summitford.com or southlakeford.com today. All right, Mark Masters on the tennis in town in Toronto, Montreal. What he thought of Djokovic getting past Alcaraz in the men's final in Paris. Also, where's he at with, the Team Canada camps, Easton Cowan? Could he be a part of the Leafs camp in a month? Does he have a chance at actually breaking camp as a member of the team? That and more coming up with Mark in about 20 minutes. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Mark Masters coming up. Maybe a little more confirm or deny after dark. Still to come. See Charles Barkley staying at TNT. I read that this morning. They have another year left of the NBA rights, and then the NBA is leaving, and got really sticky there. I think TNT or Warner Brothers, their parent company's suing the NBA. But Barkley's going to stick around and do more, NBA content, even though they don't have the rights. They have March Madness. He might show up on their hockey panels somehow.
They're probably going to do a basketball show, wouldn't they? I think a lot of people would tune in if you put that on at 10 at night, let's say a few nights a week, and they just do highlight. Can they do that? Can they do highlights? Can they talk basketball?
I don't know if you can do highlights, if you don't have the rights or what. I guess you can, right? But they can definitely create something. In this new era where if you get stuff online, people will find it too, right? Even if it isn't directly coming out of a game that you've broadcasted, if Charles Barkley is doing something, people will find it. People are seeking out Barkley content all the time, and I think TNT understands that, and I think he wants to keep doing it. He did say he was going to retire, though. He said, I'm done. I'm going to retire after this year. Or maybe I'm going to ESPN, NBC, Amazon. He's not doing any of that, evidently, anyway. He's going to stick around at TNT and just do whatever he's going to do.
Yeah, and you know what? They should have a show because that panel, what they have going, everyone wants to watch that. It's one of the best sports panels going. And I'm really curious this season what he says. Like, is he just going to let it fly, full well knowing that TNT is not going to be in the mix with the NBA? They're not going to be a rights holder, so he's just going to say the most insane stuff that normally you would not hear on the air. Because when you're a rights holder, you do have to toe the line a little bit.
Yes.
He's not going to do that.
You're in partnership. They still are next year, but I think there's a lot of bad blood there. It seems that way anyway. And if he's staying there long term, like, he doesn't have to worry about anything.
No.
He's going to say whatever is on his mind. Now, I don't know how this applies to Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny Smith, whatever, but it sounds like Barkley's just going to stick around TNT and do whatever he's going to do.
He's going to let it fly this year.
Yeah, he's probably going to let it fly. Yeah, I would not be surprised by that at all. All right, Mark Masters coming up. Tennis in Toronto, down obviously up at York, and you got tennis going on in Montreal. We'll tee up the tournament with Mark at his take on where the Leafs are going to possibly go come September. Easton Cowan's chances of making the team. And ask him about this athletic ranking as well. The confidence ranking of front offices throughout the league, where Leaf fans voted the Leafs front office 30th out of 32. What does Masters think about that? That more still to come. Final hour up next. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.